So, our speaker for today is Anne Friedman, and I have a little bit of an introduction for her. Uh, Anne Friedman, PhD, a psychologist with private practice in Houston, has studied mindfulness intensively with various national teachers since 2007. She received a certification in mindfulness facilitation from the Mindful Awareness Research Center of the Simmel Institute of Neuroscience and Behavioral Medicine at UCLA. She is a member of the International Mindfulness Teachers Association and the American Mindfulness Research Association, and provides individual training and mindfulness classes for adults, teens, and children, as well as for corporations, nonprofits, schools, law firms, government entities, and civic groups. In 2018, Anne was sent by UNICEF to teach mindfulness in Puerto Rico following Hurricane Maria. She previously served as an adjunct professor at the University of Houston Counseling Psychology graduate program for over 10 years. In addition to her work, Anne has been an active community volunteer. For over 10 years, she was a board member, in part as chairman of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Houston, the Houston A+ Challenge, and the Children's Defense Fund. She continues to serve on the advisory board of these nonprofits, as well as the advisory board of the Rothko Chapel, Shifa Women's Center, and Interfaith Ministries of Greater Houston. Anne has chaired numerous school programs, charity galas, and civic events, and has been honored for her volunteer services many times. Anne has spoken to the EDG group several times over the past years. Thank you very much, Anne.
I'm honored to be here, and I'm going to put up my PowerPoint. So I selected today the 8 vicissitudes because it's something that I need to learn and keep practicing. So I hope that working on this was good for me, and I hope that it will be helpful to you. This is coming out of the Pali Canon, the Anguttara Nikaya discourses called the Loka Dhammas. And I'd like to read a short version of it, hopefully, by Thanissaro Bhikkhu. And he translates Loka Vipata Sutta as the failings of the world. Monks, these 8 worldly conditions spin after the world, and the world spins after these 8 worldly conditions. Which 8? Gain, loss, status, disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure, pain. These are the 8 worldly conditions that spin after the world, and the world spins after these 8 worldly conditions. For an uninstructed, run-of-the-mill person, there arise gain, loss, status, disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure, and pain. For a well-instructed disciple of the Noble One, there also arise gain, loss, status, disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure, pain. So what difference, what distinction, what distinguishing factor is there between the well-instructed disciple of the Noble Ones and the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person? For us, Lord, the teachings of the Blessed One as their root, their guide, their arbitrator. It would be good if the Blessed One himself would explicate the meaning of this statement. Having heard it from the Blessed One, the monks will remember it. In that case, monks, listen and pay close attention. I will speak. As you say, Lord, the monks responded. The Blessed One said, gain arises for an uninstructed run-of-the-mill person. He does not reflect. Gain has arisen for me. It is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change. He does not discern it as it actually is. And he went on to talk, loss arises, status arises, disgrace arises, censure arises, praise arises, pleasure arises, pain arises. He does not reflect. Pain has arisen for me. It is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change. He does not discern it as it actually is. His mind remains consumed with the gain. His mind remains consumed with the loss, the status, the disgrace, the censure, the praise, the pleasure. His mind remains consumed with the pain. He welcomes the arisen gain and rebels against the lost. He welcomes the arisen status and rebels against the arisen disgrace. He welcomes the arisen praise and rebels against the arisen censure. He welcomes the arisen pleasure and rebels against the arisen pain. As he is thus engaged in welcoming and rebelling, he is not released from birth, aging, or death, from sorrows, lamentations, pain, distresses, or despairs. He is not released, I tell you, from suffering and stress. Now, gain arises for a well-instructed disciple of the noble ones. He reflects, gain has arisen for me. It is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change. He discerns it as it actually is. Loss arises, status arises, disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure. Pain arises. He reflects, pain has arisen for me. It is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change. He discerns it as it actually is. His mind does not remain consumed with the gain. His mind does not remain consumed with the loss, the status, the disgrace, the censure, the praise, the pleasure. His mind does not remain consumed with the pain. He does not welcome the arisen gain or rebel against the arisen loss. He does not welcome the arisen status or rebel against the arisen disgrace. He does not welcome the arisen praise or rebel against the arisen censure. He does not welcome the arisen pleasure and rebel against the pain. He thus abandons welcoming and rebelling. He is released from birth, aging, and death, from sorrows, lamentations, pains, distresses, and despairs. He is released, I tell you, from suffering and stress. This is the difference. This is the distinction. This is the distinguishing factor between the well-instructed disciple of the noble ones and the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person. Gain, loss, status, disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure, pain. These conditions among human beings are inconstant, impermanent, subject to change. Knowing this, the wise person, mindful, ponders these changing conditions. Desirable things don't charm the mind. Undesirable ones bring no resistance. His welcoming and rebelling are scattered, gone to their end, do not exist. Knowing the dustless, sorrowless state, he discerns rightly, has gone beyond becoming to the further shore. So pretty powerful stuff, right, for us. So I wanted first to look at the word vicissitude, which is what this is referred to often as, the 8 vicissitudes. And for me, I often go to the D of this definition that was in the Merriam-Webster, a difficulty or hardship attendant in a way of life, life's vicissitudes. But in truth, what we're also talking about is just the quality or state of being changeable, that it is a natural change and it's going to occur by chance, a fluctuation or state or of condition, alternating change. So in this reading, he talks about how the world revolves around these 8 worldly conditions, and the 8 worldly conditions revolve around the world. So most of the teachers talk about the world being sentient beings. And basically what this sutta is telling us are 4 opposing sets of states which exist in our own lives. And the Buddha is going to teach us how to gain freedom from these. So first, I'd like to explore the states a little bit. Just know that in different translations, it's also referred to as the 8 worldly winds and the 8 worldly concerns. But we mentioned already, and I've put the Pali translations there, gain and loss, fame and disrepute, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. And we know, as the reading says, these winds are constant and unavoidable, and they cause suffering based on how we react to them with craving and aversion. So, what I'd like to remind you of when I talked about anatta, I think maybe May or June, I showed you a model of our brain, and it was coming from UCLA from one of my teachers there, Dr. Dan Siegel. And I told you if you took your thumb, put it in the palm of your hand, and folded your hand over, you've roughly made a model of your brain with your spinal cord, your brain stem where automatic processes happen, breathing, swallowing, blinking, that kind of thing. And that this whole back part of our brain, the primary purpose of it is survival. It is super, super hardwired. It's come down through evolution and gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And this curlicue here is your limbic system, which has a piece on it called the amygdala, which is your threat detector. And we need this. It's what keeps us alive. But what we also know is that it's going off with all sorts of things that have nothing to do with life and death, that have to do with the 8 worldly winds. That's what it's going off about. All of the ones that are the opposing, the less desirable winds cause this to go off. When it signals, we can literally disconnect from the front parts of our brain, our higher level thinking, impulse control, and judgment. And so what we're learning to do is to watch when this is going off, which is what we're going to be talking about today. But it is biology at play here. And I really want to emphasize that because I love, there was a story of a monk that said, I have now learned to stand tall and be strong with these 8 worldly winds. And his teacher, he sent this note to his teacher saying that his teacher wrote the word fart back on the note, and the man lost it, right? Just lost it. And so he clearly had not learned to stand strong. It is very, very challenging because it's in our biology. That was a threat. That was a threat. So we want to be kind and gentle to ourselves and have compassion for ourselves because we've got a biology at play that can really make this even more challenging. So I want to talk about the various winds, and I'm going to start with pleasure and pain. So pleasure being physical or mental enjoyment, comfort experiences, so coming in through the sense doors, the 6 sense doors, sensory pleasure, emotional joy, happiness. And of course, all of these can lead to craving. We want more, we want more, we like this, it feels good. Where pain can be physical or mental discomfort, all forms of distress, including emotional and psychological, and it can lead to aversion. It also causes, when we have that pain, it's that survival instinct in the back going off. A threat has taken place, and cortisol, stress chemicals, drop in the body. So even before we have thinking, the body is reacting. We know this through science, and it can make it really hard. We're going to learn how to override our biology in essence. So we are sentient beings, and we know that what the body feels, is good, feels good. And we even know that amoebas have this reaction. So amoebas tend to go towards nutrients and away from acids. So it appears to be, in the biology of all sentient beings. And Rick Hansen says, the psychologist, pleasure is a signal to approach an experience or object that may aid survival. But our brains trick us into thinking that pleasure will somehow make our well-being permanent. And therein is the issue, right? Because we're told by the Buddha, nothing's permanent. It's inconstant and changing. So the monk Shantideva says that pleasure is like licking the honey off a razor's edge, with the razor's edge being impermanence, right? And so it temporarily soothes, but it's not going to solve the problem. It's going to go away. And oftentimes we're going toward pleasure to get out of the pain. So that's where addiction can come along, where we're just in pain, don't want to deal with it. So let's go have that glass of wine. Let's go have that ice cream. Let's go have that shopping spree and go buy something that'll make us feel better. Something that will temporarily get us out of pain, but it doesn't deal with the issues and often causes addictions and problems for people. Those aren't things we want to be engaging in to excess. And it also, with pleasure, when people get into that, they need more and more and more. It's not like what they had the first time that soothed them is enough. They need to plunge in and get even more to get the same reaction. And it's the dopamine in our brains. In order to keep getting satisfied, we literally have to continue getting. And yet we know that there's no end, and it's not ultimately going to make us happy, and it is going to change. So what we're moving toward from what the Buddha is teaching us is to not believe that the pleasant is necessary for our happiness. Not believe that the pleasant is necessary for our happiness. It's not true. And we don't want to be avoiding the pain. We want to be experiencing the fullness of our lives. So we can learn to sit with the pain, physical or emotional, and I'm going to talk about that later. I do want to mention that Sanjay Gupta, the doctor on CNN, has a new book coming out on physical pain and how mindfulness can be helpful in helping us learn how to cope with physical chronic pain. It's called It Doesn't Have to Hurt. I've heard him speak on it. It's not out yet, but it will be soon. So it's not that pleasure and pain or pleasure is bad. Again, we're built to respond to it, just like amoebas, right? We're built to respond to it. But the Buddha teaches the middle path, not aestheticism. We're not trying to avoid or deny, okay, I'm not going to have any pleasure. That's not what we're saying here. We just are learning not to react as much, which is really what mindfulness is teaching us long term, is to sit with our experiences in a less reactive way, so that we're not flying up elated and on this roller coaster, which is just painful and awful, because whatever is going up is going to come down with the gain and loss. So that's what I'd like to say now about pleasure and pain. Moving on to praise and blame. So this is not so much physical, this is relational and social. However, we know that this too has to do with our survival, because ultimately we are interdependent. we can't survive without each other. None of us can. And so the relationships, the social relationships are just critical for our own survival. So it goes back to all of that back part of the brain. So praise, getting positive feedback, compliments, approval, verbal or written acknowledgement of our qualities. And it can lead to, of course, craving, but also lots of people pleasing. And blame, criticism or disapproval from others, censure, negative feedback, being held responsible for wrongdoings can result in guilt, shame, or defensiveness. And I will say that is what happens when that brain hears criticism, hears blame. Even when we know we might deserve it, that what they're saying is probably true, it still is reacting to it because we don't want it. We don't want to be seen that way. And so the defensive response is often the very first response we make. So we know that the brain also filters and magnifies. So most of us have had compliments on something, and then maybe somebody says something that's less complimentary or critical, and who do we listen to? Well, if you're like most people, that negative remark is what you focus on. It is very, very common for us to filter down to that and make that the truth. And it's not that it's one of 5 opinions. It's now, oh my gosh, I didn't do that right. He told me that. And we believe it as fact, and our brain begins to dwell on it. So praise and blame we get from the time that we are, toddlers, right? Maybe even infants, I don't know, that our parents and then our teachers are trying to instruct us. Oh, good job. You did this so well. Or, no, you don't do that. That's naughty, or whatever parents and teachers will say to us. So it's also something that we've internalized and gotten messages about what's right and wrong, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Messages that we've never even sometimes examined on our own, that honestly, they're so deeply embedded in us that we don't even know we believe these things. And that's also what mindfulness is to teach us, to begin to examine, oh my gosh, I have this belief. I don't even know where I got that. Is that even true? Is that helpful? Is that something that I want to believe now at this stage of life? But all of this carries into adulthood, and some people becoming really, it's hard when people are such people pleasers that they're scared to live their own lives, that truly their self-worth is dependent on the approval of other people. And I have lots of clients coming dealing with these issues, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle. And oftentimes I think young women were raised this way even more, and because women tend to be very sensitive to more sensitive to the feelings of others and wanting to keep everybody happy and comfortable, it's kind of hardwired, I think, in a lot of women that these people-pleasing tendencies emerge, and you're doing things you don't even want to be doing because you want the praise, you want them to like you, you want them to, give you positive feedback. And that's not a healthy way to live our lives, where we're really at the mercy of others' approval. So we also give blame a lot. We also give praise. to people, but um, being sensitive to getting blame and understanding how you react to it. It might give you pause, and I think there have been some talks recently on right speech. Um, and boy, do we all need to work on that. Um, but how we give feedback to other people. So perhaps not giving feedback, um, just giving our opinions on things when it's not asked for, unless it's affecting us. And speaking in terms of the needs that aren't being met, that you want to have met, as opposed to the scenarios. So it can be a whole different way of expressing, but we need to be very careful, not only on how we're reacting to blame, criticism, disapproval, but what we're saying to other people is critical. So the Buddha was also blamed in numerous ancient stories. And one of them was a story of Supriya Parajaha. And this was when a group of monks was following Buddha, and there were two who had sort of broken off, and then one of their clan had joined Buddha. And it was what you see today with people speaking negatively about the other group. And so they were following them, and the monks were hearing them say, Buddha's this and Buddha's that, and this isn't good and that isn't good, and all of this criticism and disapproval. And they heard it, actually, they camped and continued to hear it through the night. And it really, really bothered the monks. And interestingly enough, it wasn't even being said to their face, they were overhearing it. And Buddha then gave them the admonition, you cannot get elated at praise or agitated when you're criticized. It's not helpful. It's not helpful. And then other really difficult stories. So a woman, Sinka Mavika, had at one point accused Buddha of impregnating her. And at one point, she's, saying how awful he is, blaming him, it's ruined my life, whatever. And she comes after the 9 months, and she has a bundle of sticks under her shirt, which makes her look pregnant. And she accuses the Buddha. And the Buddha says, you and I know the truth, basically. That's what he says. He doesn't try to put her down in any way. It's just a statement of fact. And at that point, the sticks fall out. And of course, they realize that what she was saying wasn't true. So it's not like any of us are going to get away with not experience praise and blame. The Buddha had it, everyone has it. It's part of the winds, and it's how we're reacting that matters. Gain and loss. So gain being any beneficial addition to life, which could be material possessions, financial gain, property gains, social status, or relationships. And it can get us on that roller coaster, that attachment and aversion, because what goes up must come down. It is guaranteed. It's just the law of nature that it's going to change, and that loss is going to be part of it, where we'll experience a reduction in possessions, wealth, relationships, opportunities, or status. So we are also, because of really our whole survival and need to belong, very much tied into comparing mind. And it's so easy for us to look at, oh, look at what they've got, and I only have this, and, constantly comparing. And we will go to greater lengths to avoid a loss, than to gain something. We're terrified of losing things that we care about. Our brain is much more sensitive to loss, seeing like a failure. It creates anxiety. And we somehow think, I'm a failure. I, lost this money. I did this. It's awful. And just, really get down on ourselves. And what we're trying to do is, and I'll talk about this later, but appreciative joy, to be able to step out of the comparing and be appreciative for what other people have. But even in our 5 daily recollections, we're reminded all the time that aging, illness, and death, all that is dear and pleasing to me will be separated from me. And we need to keep that in mind. It is just the way of the world, the winds of the world. So fame and disrepute, fame being recognition from family, friends, colleagues, strangers, honor, respect, popularity, social acknowledgments from others. And what this can do is lead to pride and ego inflation. And disrepute, disgrace, and another translation uses the word insignificance, which I thought was really, really interesting, and enlightening for me. Loss of reputation, respect, honor, being criticized, or losing social standing. And it can lead to suffering and diminished sense of self-worth. So the reason I said that word insignificance was interesting and enlightening for me is we know that human beings have a need to matter, to be seen and heard and valued. We do, right? And so again, it's part of being in that tribe that I will be safe if these people like me, appreciate me, I'm seen, valued, then I'm somehow safe, is what it is in our biology. So with fame, this raises questions for us like, are we well regarded? Are we in good standing with our group? Do people trust us? Do they value our opinions? Do they listen and hear what you have to say? Do they respect your achievements? But again, every human being is going to be exposed to popularity by, recognition, people appreciating them, and then people not. It's a guarantee. And what we have to often remember is that it is not a personal attack. It is not a personal attack. It is really often about the other person. That is not to say that sometimes we haven't done something that we need to look at, that we need to examine and reflect and own. But oftentimes it is about the other person and what's being responded, how they're responding. And we also know that as people's fame spreads, human beings don't like it. So we like to see the guy on top getting knocked off. And there's that wonderful German term, I think it's Schadenfreude, which is taking pleasure that somebody's getting knocked down a few pegs, well, he got his. And that is a really human response to fame. And not a very healthy one either, because we don't want to see people hurt. That's not what we're all about. We're about love and kindness. So I want to talk a little bit now about the Buddhist practice and how it can be helpful in dealing with these winds. And the practices that I'm going to mention today are equanimity practice, non-attachment, mindfulness and Vipassana insight, ethical conduct, and then studying Buddhist texts and sharing in community. So the first being cultivating equanimity. And what is equanimity? It's a state of mental calmness, composure, and even-mindedness, especially in difficult situations. So we're not getting on that roller coaster ride. We're not getting, all cranked up. We're staying even and just being observing is what we're doing. And the traditional phrases for equanimity, and I sort of put them in my own words of what I use, to cultivate this is reminding ourselves, I am as I am, perfectly imperfect like everyone else. I am the perfect me. My history, upbringing, religion, education, biological temperament, culture, all make me who I am. I couldn't be different in this moment. Neither could the other person. They are also perfectly imperfect. They too could not be different. Their history, upbringing, culture made them the perfect them. And both of us make set mistakes, have setbacks and failures. It's universal. And mistakes, failures, and setbacks are opportunities to learn and grow. That all relationships, family relationships, friend relationships, work colleagues, have ups and downs. This is normal. Somehow we believe that things should just rock along with no difficulties. Well, we know life is full of difficulties. It's how we're reacting to them that matters, right? We're not going to change the difficulties. They're not going to stop coming. And that we're doing the best, and that's all we can do. And so is the other person. It's the best we can do, and they can do if you're tired or hungry or confused or upset. It's the best we can do in that moment. And that all people have different beliefs and perspective based on their experiences. Mine aren't correct. They're just a different set of perspectives and beliefs. And no matter what we are experiencing, it is universal. Millions of people around the world are having the exact same experience as we are right now. They have the exact same feelings, and it's the same kind of situation. They're getting blamed. They're getting experiencing a loss. It is universal. And that everything passes, which is, the basics of the sutta, the changing nature of all things, and that it's up to us to learn to ride the winds. So these kinds of equanimity phrases I use myself all the time. Sometimes shorthand, just I'm doing the best I can right now, and that's all I can do. And it helps me gain perspective. So actually, it's very different than something like I'm blanking on what they call them. Like, I am beautiful, I am smart, I am like saying things to ourselves that are positive and upbeat. What this is doing is actually reconnecting your brain with reality. It is telling you things that are true. You are perfectly imperfect. You are doing the best you can in this moment. Everything is, changing. It is a universal story. So it's not, saying things to sort of build yourself up. It's saying things to connect with truth, connect with the front part of your brain. And that's one of the reasons why, for me, this is really powerful when I get disconnected. So non-attachment is not indifference or renunciation. It's not, I don't care. That's not what it is. We do care. We do care. But we're not going to grasp. We're not going to push away or grab onto it. We're just going to experience it, actively engage with it without pushing and pulling. In this case, pulling. And there are different words for non-attachment here. So aloba, the absence of greed, craving, and the desire for worldly things or existence. Nakama, freedom from lust, craving, desires, often implying the freedom of having a life rather than literal giving up of everything. The Sanskrit non-attachment or dispassion. And then I also like the Zen, the Wu Neon, literally meaning no thought, but describes a state of unstained detachment from one's thoughts and opinions. So, we do have opinions all the time about everything. Why do we need to share them all the time? It's something we need to really work on. There's just an opinion, doesn't mean anything. So ways to cultivate non-attachment. Regularly reflect on a personal experiences of gain, loss, fame, disrepute, praise, blame, pleasure, pain. So I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes for a minute. And I'm going to ask you some questions. And I want you to reflect. Which of the 8 worldly winds are you most sensitive to? What are your personal triggers or activations? Maybe it's being around a specific person or group or when do you find yourself doing things because you are chasing pleasure, gain, praise, or fame? And what do you avoid because of fear of pain, loss, blame, or disrepute? Do you avoid things? Just watching your positive and negative reactions that arise as you do this. Okay, inviting you to open your eyes now. So it can be helpful to regularly reflect on this because these winds are blowing all day, every day. And so we need to make this a part of our practice, be very, very aware of what's rocking our boats. And we need to remember the Buddha's admonition. This experience is an inherent part of life. It's impermanent, subject to change, not personal, and it's our attachment and aversion that causes our suffering. And our happiness is not dependent on welcoming, approving, and rebelling and disproving. In fact, our happiness is never going to come from that. It's going to come from equanimity and non-attachment. And when we release our minds from these turmoil of all these conditions, the winds, we can begin to develop a little more inner confidence, where we're not as affected by them. So mindfulness and Vipassana insight, the intention to see things clearly for what they are, and understanding the three characteristics of existence that we know, the impermanent, suffering, and no self, and practicing letting go. So when we're doing, just like we did at 10 o'clock today, our regular meditations, we see all sorts of things arising, don't we? It's amazing. And it could be something from 20 years ago, or something that happened yesterday, or something we think might happen tomorrow, or 3 months from now, something that's going on right now, physically, emotionally, today. It can be all sorts of things. And just learning to not react and to just observe, oh, a thought, an emotion. There goes another thought. Oh, there's some anger. With less reactivity is what we're training the brain to do, that we don't need to react and disconnect with every single threat of a thought that we have or physical experience. No, it's just a little discomfort. I don't need to I don't need to think it's cancer and get all upset and tight and whatever. Just feeling a little discomfort in the belly, whatever's happening, to learn how to just let it go, let it go, let it go, and return the mind to focus. So it can be critical. But there are other practices in mindfulness that can be equally as helpful as just our basic practices, and they're the cultivation practices. So when we are in strong emotions from the four challenging winds, that practice of rain, to recognize the emotion, name it, welcome it, allow it. It's here in your body. It's already in your body, and it's going to keep going at you until you turn around and greet it and welcome it and befriend it. So then we're investigating the sensations in the body. And when we do that, we're knowing, yeah, heart's pounding or stomach's churning or jaws tight or head hurts. It's cortisol in the body. That's all it is. It is stress chemicals in the body that we can just breathe with. Unpleasant body sensations. Not going to kill us, just unpleasant. And then learning how to nurture and not identify. So by that, we are saying things to ourselves that the wise one within us is speaking to the part of us who is struggling, like the best parent would speak to their child to get their brain reconnected and calm. And the not identifying is realizing how universal. Oh, so, we're getting blamed. So are millions of people on the planet today. It is just all over the place. It's universal. The compassion practice, really getting in touch and soothing it when we are in pain, because we are sentient beings and it's hard. It's not like we can't just react. I mean, going back to that first story I mentioned today, where the monk said, I can deal with the 8 worldly winds. Right. There are, I truly believe the Buddha and others could, but most of us aren't there yet. It is really, really, strong stuff, these winds. They blow hard. So we want to give ourselves lots of compassion for any suffering. And then mudita practice, the appreciative joy. So when we're in that comparing mind, instead to be able to step out and really genuinely be grateful for this person's happiness, be grateful for their success. And it's a training for us to learn how to cultivate. I may not have it, but you got the promotion and I'm really glad for you. I'm really glad for you. And instead of focusing on why did he get it? I should have gotten it, you know, which is bringing us more suffering. Instead, really, finding that appreciative joy for others, happiness, success, and well-being. And then, of course, our loving kindness practice, where we send what we would want for everyone, including ourselves, wishes for safety and health and ease and peace, basic wishes that we want every human being to have. So all of these kinds of practices can help us. The stronger we are in these, and the more they're a go-to when we see we're caught in the moment, the more we can learn how to just use them on the spot, to get perspective, and to be able to not react. I don't need to go there. I don't need to react. Yes, there's blame here, but I don't need to be reactive to it. I should expect this. I should expect this because everyone's experiencing this at some point. Well, and of course, we are taught by the Buddha to live ethically, adhering to the 5 precepts and other moral guidelines. And this really reinforces our sense of inner peace. When we know that we are living skillfully as best we can, we are imperfect, right? We are all imperfect. But when we know we are doing the best we can to live skillfully, then we have an inner confidence that when these winds hit, you know, we know that, we have stayed the course as best we can, and we're less likely to get into that blame. Because one of the things that happens with blame is it oftentimes triggers our own self-blame. And most of us have this horrible inner critic that can just beat us up if we let it. And it doesn't help going down that spiral. It doesn't help. In fact, we know the inner critic sabotages us. So, when we have done something unskillful, yeah, we need to own up to it, and make amends as best we can and get back on the skillful path. But we don't need to beat ourselves up. That blame towards self is never, never helpful. Guilt and shame, that's never it's not helpful. We want to really act on what we need to change and move on. And then, of course, like today, being able to study the Buddhist texts and share in community and, share our stories, because this is not easy. These winds are hitting all of us. And, to be able to talk to people in the Sangha, how are you dealing with this? How have you dealt with this? and share is critical. It really supports us when we have this, because these aren't going away. So I'd like to end, and then I'll open it to questions and comments, but from a poem called Faith and Mind by a Zen monk. The great way is not difficult. If only you do not pick and choose, neither love nor hate, and you will clearly understand. Be off by a hair, and you are as far from it as heaven from earth. If you want the way to appear, be neither for nor against, for and against opposing each other. This is the mind's disease. So, opening it up for comments and questions.
Uh, we have someone on Zoom that has a question.
Oh, okay. Felici? How do you say your name?
Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah,
Let's see.
there he goes.
Oh,
And thank you so much. This is an excellent, excellent talk. I see you're really, really organized and so well prepared. Very, very good. My question is, all my life is dealing with this comparing mind. I gotta be as good as the next guy on my cubicle. This comparing mind is really tough to deal with, especially in this society,
yeah.
especially if you think about Darwinian theory about the fittest should survive.
Yes.
And I have to ask myself, what does the fittest mean? I gotta be the best. It is so when you say equanimity practice, it sounds like a little bit of, I don't want to say cop out, but it's kind of drawing back.
Yeah. Thank you.
It-
Oh, go ahead.
because the work is just, environment is just very competitive. I don't know, exceptional in IT. I think it's everywhere in medical, in investment, and this particularly gain and loss is kind of very tough because it can create stress and fear.
Yes.
So I really appreciate some of your tip, but like I said, intellectually it's always easy. Emotionally, it's very difficult. And thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for saying this, because I think you're saying what all of us feel, or many of us feel. It's our culture is really set up this way, and our workstations are, it's all about pitting us against other people, comparing, right? It's everywhere in our culture. And so I will say one of the things I do that can help me is to remind myself that everyone has different skills and abilities, and I don't have certain skills and I have other skills. And I was meant to bring my unique skills to serve. And I remind myself of that. I'm not meant to have their skills. I'm meant to have my skills. And that always helps me a little bit. But it's also what you said, taking it from the head into, because it's visceral. We've got to somehow process these emotions. And that's why the rain practice and the mudita, all of those kinds of practice help us work with not just our thinking, but the actual body experience, the emotions that are down in the body. And it's challenging. We just have to be vigilant on our practice and keep practicing constantly. Other questions or comments?
I had a question. and it's about the was it the medita practice, the practice of feeling this joy for other people's success. Something that I often struggle with is the feeling joy for other people's success when other people's success is built upon um, negative things like sowing discord or dividing people or cheating people. And I don't really know how I'm supposed to feel positive things or feel positive things about their success when that success is based on things we shouldn't be doing or should try to avoid. And so I was wondering if you have any words of wisdom on how we're supposed to feel joy in others' success when their success is based on these negative qualities that we're trying to avoid.
It's a great question. That's a great question. And, for me, I think I have the same experience. And what I say are these are tools in a toolbox. And what I need to do is understand the equanimity. That person couldn't be other than they are in this moment based on their experiences, history, upbringing, religion, all that made them them, and that they're doing the best they can. So I use a different tool than the mudita probably. It's to keep the connection with the other person where I don't other them, but I don't necessarily get joy from seeing, when they're putting other people down and yes, hurting other people. Yeah, it's hard to find joy, right? But I think we need to still maintain the heart connection of they're a human being.
Thank you. We have a question in the hall here.
Anne, thank you so much for coming and talking with us today. I really appreciated the list of equanimity phrases that you had. I was wondering, is there a resource that's available where you pull those from, or are those available?
They were what I learned in 2015 from my teacher at UCLA. This talk is available with the PowerPoint, and so you'll have them at any time to go back and refer to the slides. I've sort of reworded things my way sometimes, but they're available, and you'll be able to watch this again and pull them off. Or I'm happy to send a listing that you could send out too, either way. Yeah.
Just as a reminder, these are all recorded and they're on our YouTube page. So they'll be uploaded in probably a week or two, something like that.
Just to point out, I think Terry had a question in the chat.
Oh.
I think it was similar to David's point.
So how do you balance detachment with running a business? Would you be willing to say a little bit more about that, Terry, or you only want to communicate online? You're muted. Oh, she just went off.
Okay, no, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
here. I'm sorry. I'm actually trying to cook lunch. So yes, part of I run multiple entities that I've founded, and my struggle is trying to be detached, but also visualize the future and the goals of the company. And so I don't understand how to be detached while I'm still visualizing all these things that I want, that I'm trying to manifest into the future.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to you for running multiple entities and being your own boss. That's got to be exciting at some level.
Thank you.
So what I would say is we're not attached to outcomes. We put in right effort and we try skillful means and we do our best. It's not that we don't have goals, but we're not attached to them, because no matter if we put in right effort, the outcome we see doesn't always happen. And that's where the suffering comes. When we think we're failures because we didn't hit this outcome, when in fact, maybe, it was out of our hands. Most of the time it is. And, we're not in control. So, focusing more on the efforts you're doing in your business and making sure they're aligned with as best you can with skillful means, with moral and ethical conduct, all of that. And then just knowing you're doing the best you can.
Thank you. That was perfect. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I did have one more question on the equanimity thing. So I really enjoyed that list. Something that I guess jumped out to me was feeling like another individual or someone, they're in essentially the same boat as I am. They're imperfect, all of that. They're made up by the same conditions. They can't be anything else. I guess my concern would be, it almost feels like it's, what's the way to say it? It feels like it alleviates them of the responsibility for their own actions, because it's like you're trying to give yourself this equanimity, but it also feels like you're saying, well, they're also, the circumstances have made them that way, and they can't be anything else because of that. But that seems to forgive them of conscious choices that they have made. And so I guess I'm just trying to understand, like, how one can feel equanimity for another without essentially giving them a pass for their conscious choices that may be harmful to others.
Yeah, really good question again. And the key for me is speaking up when needs are not met. So it's not that we're being a doormat and saying, oh, whatever this person does is fine, they couldn't help it, right? It is understanding they couldn't have been other, that they too are a product of all that they, experienced. And so we're not othering them like they're some rotten person kind of thing. But in this situation, my needs weren't met, or these needs weren't met, or whatever it is, we're still speaking to what needs to be addressed in skillful means. Right? Not you son of a gun, you just did this and this and this and this and this. That's not skillful means.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody online?
No. I was just going to say thank you for letting me do this. It made me think deeper about it. And so anytime I do something like this, I'm very grateful to the people who ask me, because it helps me. So I hope it helped you too.
Thank you very much. It was a wonderful discussion. And with that, if everybody will please stand, we'll bow out for the day. Three bows to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.